Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we unpack complex ideas, really try to extract those important nuggets of knowledge so you can become truly well-informed.
And today we're diving into something fascinating, maybe a bit provocative.
Definitely. Sacred Cows, the truth about divorce and marriage. We're looking at a book that really challenges some, deeply ingrained societal attitudes, false assumptions most of us just accept.
Things we don't even think to question.
Exactly. So our mission today is to cut through that noise, give you a shortcut to understanding this, and hopefully offer some, well, surprising insights.
You know, like that feeling when you realize colds are from viruses, not just being cold.
Right. It can be a bit disorienting, but in a good way, a fresh lens on something really fundamental.
And the authors have such interesting backgrounds, too.
Yeah, one's a computer scientist, entrepreneurial, overseeing Google X, the moonshot factory.
Bring these huge scientific ideas to life, and the other.
A physician, intensive care, lung medicine, trained doctors, ran research at Pitt and Harvard.
So, very different fields, but both have dealt with divorce personally. And they clearly share this practice of questioning the status quo.
Definitely. Okay, so let's get started. Let's unpack this. What exactly are these sacred cows they're talking about? Why challenge them?
Well, it's fascinating how they define them. These sacred cows, there's essentially false cultural assumptions,
Okay.
beliefs that are so deeply held in society.
Yeah.
They're almost never questioned. Like, old scientific models everyone just accepted.
And if you challenge them,
You might face ridicule, even ostracism. It can be quite intense.
hmm,
So the book's core premise, it's really about our attitudes, society's attitudes towards marriage and divorce, and how those attitudes impact all of us.
how so?
Well, it even gets into this subconscious belief that maybe divorced people aren't quite as good as married people.
Like they're lacking something. Honor, maybe? Promise-keeping ability?
Exactly. That kind of quiet judgment we might hold without even realizing it.
Okay.
So throughout this deep dive, we're going to explore the main cows shaping these views. There's the holy cow,
Uh,
the expert cow, the selfish cow, the defective cow, and the innocent victim cow.
right. So these are all false assumptions. Which one feels like the biggest hurdle? I'm thinking the holy cow. It seems foundational, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The holy cow is maybe the most, well, self-righteous of the bunch,
Okay.
or core belief.
Hmm.
Divorce is a personal failure. Married people are inherently superior.
Simple as that.
Pretty much. Her mission is basically to convince everyone that the commitment of marriage, it should always trump personal happiness.
Always.
Always. And she uses what the authors call spurious data and anecdotes to make her case. Lots of questionable evidence.
So that creates stigma.
A huge stigma around divorce, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, they note, among the relatively affluent.
Oh, interesting. Why them specifically?
Well, for that group, divorce has become, quote, a source of shame, a mark of failure, a sign that you just aren't working hard enough. And the stats kind of back this up, or at least correlate. The 10-year divorce rate for college-educated Americans, it's fallen way down to 11%,
Wow, compared to...
compared to almost 37% for the rest of the population. So it can lead to this attitude of, our kind don't divorce.
Right. I can see how that happens.
And you see this reflected, like sociologist Charles Murray argued that getting married and staying married is a path to a better life, particularly for the educated class.
But the authors push back on that.
They do, directly. They say just pushing people to marry and stay married, it's unlikely to increase personal happiness or social good. It's not some magic bullet fix.
So what about the marriage contract itself? Those vows, love you forever until death do us part. They sound pretty absolute, but also kind of vague, right?
That's exactly the point the authors make. Is it even possible to genuinely promise an emotion like love forever?
Probably not when you put it like that.
Yeah, they describe weddings as an exercise in group denial, or at least group optimism.
Mm.
And therapist Esther Perel says, the contract shatters the romantic ideal because nobody wants to think about the what-ifs at the beginning.
Right.
And the holy cow exploits this ambiguity, pushes these really unreasonable expectations like, I'll stay with you till I die, no matter how badly you treat me.
But what is the real commitment then, according to the source?
They suggest it's simpler, maybe more profound. It's I choose you. An ongoing choice, not a locked-in, one-time promise for all eternity.
That makes sense. An active choice.
Think about their example, Jennifer and Amir. If they found out their marriage certificate was, like, technically invalid, Would separating be any easier if the love was gone?
No, probably not. All the hard stuff is still there.
Exactly. The emotional pain, dividing assets, the social fallout, none of that changes based on the paper.
Hmm.
And this ties into that cliche about second marriages being the triumph of hope over experience.
Right, you hear that all the time.
They use the example of Greg. His first marriage to Rebecca ends. He gets engaged to Anika. His friend asks, "How can you do it again?"
Yeah, what's his answer?
Greg, being logical, points out his past divorce doesn't really change the odds with Anika. She could still leave him. He could still fall out of love. His hope for this new marriage isn't less warranted than it was the first time.
So, past failure doesn't automatically predict future failure in a different context.
Precisely. The experience doesn't dictate the outcome of a whole new relationship.
Okay, so zooming out,
Yeah.
how does this holy cow influence society more broadly? Is it used politically?
Oh, absolutely. It gets woven into social and political forces. They mention the National Marriage Project, for instance.
What about them?
They release this annual State of Our Unions report, and the media, the authors say, just gobbles it up. Quick, cheap data source.
Reinforcing the pro-marriage narrative.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
These reports often reinforce the idea that marriage itself is the solution.
Which brings up that whole correlation versus causation issue again, right?
Big time. The book shows a graph, no obvious link between changes in real GDP and the divorce rate from 1980 to 2010. But then, to make a point satirically, they show another graph. This one shows an almost perfect correlation, like R equals 0.945, between the male smoking rate and the divorce rate over the same time.
Seriously. Smoking and divorce.
Yeah. They joke maybe people just don't like kissing smokers.
Huh. Okay, I got the point.
Their argument is that this made-up correlation is no more ridiculous than what the papers actually printed about divorce and economic recession.
Wow.
It just highlights how easy it is to spin a story of causation between two unrelated things. So we should be skeptical when the holy cow claims more marriage automatically means a wealthier, happier country.
Right, correlation isn't causation. A classic.
So, yeah, divorce is painful, breaking commitments isn't great. But those things alone aren't enough reason to discourage divorce or push marriage universally.
Real insight being.
Look beyond the guilt. Personal well-being isn't always found by sticking to the script, especially if the script is based on spurious data.
Okay, that makes sense. So, if the holy cow says marriage is sacred and divorce is failure, it often implies there's always a fix, right? Which leads us straight to the next one. The expert cow.
Exactly. The expert cow promises marriage salvation, through self-help books, counseling. There's always an answer, always an expert.
Sounds comforting, at least on the surface.
It does. But the authors critique those typical diagnostic lists you find in self-help books.
What's wrong with them?
They focus on the solvable stuff. Money arguments, in-laws, chores, affection, sex. But they almost never ask the really hard questions.
Such as?
Like, do you just not love your spouse anymore?
Oh.
Or are you in an abusive relationship? Do you think your spouse doesn't love you? Or even, do you find your spouse physically unappealing?
Wow, yeah. Those are definitely heavier.
And avoiding those questions, it leads to confusion, feelings of failure. You end up ignoring the real underlying problems.
Yeah.
They share this anecdote, cynical in Cincinnati, about a couple spending $6,000 on a retreat.
$6,000, wow.
Yeah, and this famous psychologist diagnoses an adolescent approach to sexuality without even discussing it with them.
What? Just like that.
Just like that. It really shows how desperate people can be. Easy prey for those who offer miracle cures, especially when they're hurting and looking for a quick fix.
It sounds like using statistics for support, not elimination, like Vin Scully said about drunks and lampposts. Are these marriage counselors really gods who can fix anything?
That's a perfect analogy here. And this is where distinguishing hard facts, provable things from soft facts, speculative ideas, is so important in marriage research.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a real lack of rigorous studies, like proper randomized trials, proving that counseling actually saves marriages long-term.
So, no gold standard proof?
Very little. Most published studies are small, observational, and just full of potential bias. The authors found only one randomized trial they considered relevant, a German study from 2010 on preventive therapy. But even that had issues, like self-selection bias. The people who volunteer might be more motivated to begin with.
So you can't really say for sure that counseling cures marital problems based on science.
But not definitively, no. There's just no solid scientific proof.
Okay, but what about the big names? The gurus, like John Gottman and his Love Lab. He claims super high prediction rates for divorce, right? Like, amazing accuracy.
Gottman's definitely influential, his method. Observing couples argue, coding emotions discussed, belligerence, interest monitoring heart rates, things like that.
And the accuracy claims.
He claimed 91% accuracy in predicting divorce at one point, maybe 83% in a key 1998 study. Sounds incredibly impressive.
It does, but
But how do you define accuracy here? There's the issue of overfitting.
overfitting.
Yeah, like looking at tons of variables in football games, weather, what players ate, whatever, and finding patterns that seem predictive but don't actually work for new games. Find enough correlations, something will stick.
Ah, finding patterns in noise.
Kind of. And then there's the problem with accuracy itself in human populations. It's not just about the percentage. Think about a medical test, like for HIV. Even if it's 98% accurate, if the condition is rare in the population, a few false positives can really mess up the usefulness for any single person.
Right, the base rate matters.
Exactly. So the really powerful insight here, Gottman hasn't actually proven his advice saves marriages, only that he can predict which ones might fail.
Prediction is an intervention.
Precisely. And as the authors note, his books are so popular, maybe he doesn't really need to prove intervention works.
Okay, that's a critical difference. So if experts can't guarantee a fix, what does that mean for how we view the choice to leave? That brings us to the whole selfishness angle, doesn't it? The selfish cow.
It absolutely does. This cow basically defines selfishness as focusing on your own happiness without regard for others or not putting others' happiness first.
Okay.
And the book uses these selfishness charts to illustrate the conflict.
How do those work?
Well, from a strict religious perspective, if someone named Logan considers leaving a marriage, it's just selfish, period. Happiness doesn't factor into the moral judgment.
Okay, black and white.
But then they show it from a utilitarian perspective, where the goal is maximizing overall happiness for everyone involved.
So the total happiness matters.
Right. And in that view, sometimes staying in a miserable marriage actually decreases total happiness. It could be considered selfish to stay if everyone's suffering. It highlights this really nuanced zone full of shades of gray.
Where the right answer isn't obvious.
Exactly. And the authors suggest most people kind of mix these views. We might have a gut reaction that divorce is selfish, but we can soften that view depending on the situation.
Can you give an example from the book?
Sure. Case 2, Bob and Sally. Married 25 years, Bob's unhappy, thinking of leaving. Sally reminds him of her sacrifices, says she's too old to start over.
So who's selfish there?
Well, you could argue both are. Sally, maybe, for demanding Bob sacrifice his happiness. Bob for prioritizing his own over the disruption to Sally. It's messy.
Another example.
Case 3, Malcolm and Chanel. They stay together for the kids, but basically live separate lives, trading nasty remarks through their children.
Ouch. Not exactly a happy home.
Right. The authors suggest they could do better by one another and by their children by making some different choices. Staying isn't automatically selfless.
So the takeaway is...
What seems selfish or selfless really depends on the specifics. We shouldn't assume divorcing is always selfish or staying is always selfless. Sometimes staying is the more selfish act.
Why do people stay in bad marriages then, if not for selflessness?
Well, Sigmund Freud had an idea about this. The negative aim. Avoiding pain can be as strong a motivator as seeking pleasure.
So people stay to avoid the pain of divorce, not necessarily for the joy of marriage.
It's likely a big factor for many. They stay to avoid the disruption, the conflict, the unknown. But as the book bluntly puts it, nobody gets a trophy for surviving a bad marriage. So maybe a good friend shouldn't just say, marriage is hard work. Maybe they should talk about the benefits that make the hard work worthwhile. Affection, companionship, support.
Focus on the why, not just the how hard.
Exactly. Staying just to avoid pain isn't the same as actively choosing happiness.
Which really reframes that whole hard work of marriage cliche, doesn't it? It's not just about effort, but effort towards something worthwhile. What is that hard work people talk about anyway?
Well, the self-help books usually list things like conflict resolution, compromise, being kind, keeping romance alive, dealing with stress together.
Okay, standard stuff.
Yeah, and some problems can be helped by that. But the authors argue other problems are, like, orthogonal. They're just not solvable by that kind of work. Or maybe they're even caused by one person always compromising.
So effort isn't always the answer.
Right. They quote a saying from business. Sometimes the best deal to do is no deal at all. Marriage can occasionally be like that too.
Interesting analogy.
And the selfish cow loves the hard work idea because it makes everyone want to seem industrious. It implies all problems are fixable if you just try hard enough.
Which makes people who divorce seem lazy or selfish failures.
Precisely. It ignores that some issues might be fundamental incompatibility, not lack of effort.
This flows right into the next cow, doesn't it? The defective cow. Using fear and shame as tools. Sounds like it targets your self-worth.
Totally. This cow suggests that if your marriage isn't happy, or the passion's faded, then there's something wrong with you. You're deficient somehow.
How does that play out?
Well, consider the stereotype about women losing interest in sex after marriage.
Okay.
If a woman, let's call her Barbara, is healthy but just isn't attracted to her husband William anymore, society, influenced by this cow, implies she's defective.
Rather than just accepting the lack of attraction or advising divorce?
Exactly. It avoids confronting the difficult reality. It's easier to imply she's broken. And experts like anthropologist Helen Fisher or therapist Lori Gottlieb point out, people marry for love and passion, sure, but sustaining those intense levels for decades, it's not always possible.
It's unrealistic.
Gottlieb even suggests for some, the only real fix for lost desire is a new partner, which might not be what they want at all. So the authors joke the defective cow should maybe be the nobody is having sex, so get used to it cow.
A bit blunt.
But it acknowledges that fading passion isn't necessarily a personal defect. Companionship, affection, those can still be valuable. Evolving desires are normal.
What about the self-help industry promising to reignite passion, the magic passion pill?
Yeah, the authors are pretty dismissive of that intimacy creation promise. There's no magic formula.
Why not?
Well, intimacy doesn't automatically create passion. Esther Perel actually argues it can sometimes dampen desire. Date nights and flowers aren't going to fix a fundamental lack of attraction.
So that fake it till you make it advice.
The authors call it secret cow poop. Basically, nonsense that blames the individual, you're not doing it right, instead of acknowledging that maybe the connection just isn't there anymore.
This seems linked to how marriage itself has changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
David Popenoe noted the shift from marriage being about economic security or kids to being primarily about self-fulfillment.
Which creates a conflict.
Yeah, because we have two incompatible cultural ideas fighting it out. Marriage as a practical partnership versus marriage as this ultimate expression of passionate love.
And the authors say,
They say, look, if marriage is a business, we shouldn't treat people like they're defective if they don't desire their spouses. If marriage is about deeply loving and desiring one another, then we shouldn't tell unhappy people that they are defective. Society sets up contradictory expectations, making people feel flawed.
it's fascinating how our perceptions change depending on the situation. Those mad cow libs examples in the book really show the double standards, don't they?
Oh yeah, the mad cow libs are brilliant for showing our inconsistencies. Like, your brother calls saying he's divorcing Anita, who you don't love. You might say, whoa, slow down, think about it.
Right. Urge caution.
But if he calls saying he's marrying Anita, you probably applaud him, offer congrats.
Even with the same reservations about Anita.
Exactly. The authors argue it's illogical. He surely knows more about the Anita he's divorcing than the one he married.
Good point. What's another example?
Vikram talking about his ex. If she's his ex-girlfriend from Italy, no big deal. If she's his ex-wife from Italy, suddenly society treats them like damaged goods.
Even though we know nothing about why they split.
Right. It shows that huge gap between how marriages look from the outside and the reality inside,
Right.
which conveniently helps the defective cow make married people seem happy and divorced people seem pitiable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the terrible advice people give, like telling Susie she should stay with Larry just to avoid being alone forever or because divorce is painful.
Yeah, the pain argument seems weak.
The book likens it to telling someone with gangrene not to amputate because surgery hurts. Life changes are difficult, but not making changes can sometimes be even more catastrophic.
So the powerful insight here is trust yourself.
Pretty much. You're your own best expert on your happiness. Don't let flawed stats or the defective cow dictate your life. There's no one-size-fits-all for marriage or divorce.
Which brings up a massive question people always ask. Do studies actually prove divorce makes people unhappy? You hear it constantly, but is it just another myth?
Yeah, this is a big one. And it's tricky because researchers' own ideas can shape their findings.
How so?
Well, studies like Paul Mido's review from 2000 did say divorce leads to lower levels of psychological well-being, and a Detroit study by Asseltane and Kessler in '93 reported divorced people had a decrease in happiness.
Okay, so there is some data.
There is, but we need to dig into it. These studies often don't specifically look at couples who are already on the brink of divorce, and they usually only follow people for a short time, maybe up to 3 years.
Not long enough to get past the initial trauma of splitting up.
Exactly. You might just be measuring the immediate pain, not long-term well-being,
Yeah.
and the size, the difference they found.
Was it big?
Absolutely minuscule, like statistically detectable maybe, but practically meaningless. They compare it to an obesity study claiming a significant 7.5-pound weight difference from a supposed cure. You wouldn't be impressed, right?
No, not really.
So this is where that hard facts versus soft facts thing really matters.
Hmm.
What gets presented as truth is often just interpretation based on shaky observational data.
So the bottom line on divorce and happiness.
The powerful conclusion is, nobody has convincingly demonstrated that choosing to stay married rather than choosing to divorce results in a happier life.
Wow.
The real insight. Base your decisions on your individual situation and feelings, not on flawed averages or what society claims should make you happy.
That's huge. Okay, let's shift to maybe the most emotionally loaded cow. The idea about the kids, the innocent victim cow, that children always suffer from divorce.
Right, the innocent victim cow. She's a master manipulator, playing on parental instincts.
Right.
But her weakness, that impressive teetering pile of fake data.
Fake data. Okay, but first, a caveat.
Yes, absolutely. The authors are clear. Children do suffer when their parents divorce. That's not denied. The pain is real.
Okay.
But the cow's core belief is different. It's that children whose parents stay in a bad marriage end up having measurably happier, more productive, and more fulfilled lives than if the parents is split.
That staying in misery is better for the kids than divorcing.
That's the claim. And the book counters with anecdotes like the born-again dad in Denver, Jason.
What happened with him?
After his divorce, he actually found himself much closer to his daughters. He treasured their time together more, was more present, happier. His daughters got a better version of their dad, even with shared custody.
Interesting perspective. Now, what about that statistic you hear all the time? Children divorced are more likely to get divorced themselves? Doesn't that prove divorce damages kids long term?
Another classic correlation causation trap. It's fascinating how often this is presented as proof.
So it's just a correlation.
Yes. The authors suggest maybe something like poor impulse control could be passed down, genetically or behaviorally. So the child's divorce might stem from their own traits, not just the parent's divorce itself.
Like the sunburn example you mentioned earlier, both got burned by the same sun. Underlying traits, one didn't cause the other.
Exactly. Or think about low family income. It correlates with both divorce and worse outcomes for kids. So is it the divorce doing the harm or the poverty? It's hard to untangle.
And researchers might focus on negative results.
The authors note there's often an incentive to publish interesting findings, which frequently means focusing on the negative impacts.
So how do researchers try to account for these other factors like income or education?
They use statistical models to try and adjust for these confounding variables.
Wow.
But what often happens, especially in smaller studies, is the initial differences between kids from divorce versus intact families just dwindle or disappear once you control for other things. And they share the story of the puzzled preteen in Punxsutawney. This kid was actually happy with divorced parents, 2 Christmases, more vacations, and found it weird that other people feel embarrassed or sorry for me.
So the kid's lived experience didn't match the stereotype.
Not at all. Now, the real way to solve this selection bias issue, randomized studies.
Where you randomly assign parents to divorce or stay married.
Yep, which obviously completely unethical and impossible.
Right.
So divorce research can never be truly definitive, like, say, an FDA drug trial. We have to rely on less perfect methods.
So what do the less perfect studies actually show overall?
Well, Paul Amato did a big meta-analysis of 67 studies back in the 90s. He found that more than half of published comparisons showed no statistical differences between children of divorced and married parents.
More than half showed no difference.
Correct. And even when differences were found, they were typically minuscule, tiny.
So the crucial takeaway for parents facing this
Is that while divorce is hard on kids, the idea that staying in an unhappy marriage is always the better choice for them is largely unfounded, according to this source. The real focus should probably be on creating a healthy, loving environment for the child, which might mean parents separating rather than sacrificing everyone's well-being for a societal ideal. Don't let guilt based on shaky data be the deciding factor.
That really does shift the perspective. Okay, let's move to the final set of related cows, the one true cow and the other cow. These seem to get right to the heart of love, loyalty, why we marry.
They really do. The one true cow is interesting. She promotes the idea of true love to get people married.
Okay, the romantic ideal.
Right. But then If that same true love feeling pops up later and threatens an existing marriage, suddenly the cow undermines the whole idea.
So true love is great until it's inconvenient.
Pretty much. The book asks, is true love a myth or is it real? It includes an anecdote from Peaceful in Pennsylvania. After a divorce, this person found a new soulmate.
And their conclusion.
The universe is too vast for us to believe that there is only one person for our entire lives. Suggests true love is real, but maybe not singular or eternal?
So where's the hypocrisy the cow exploits?
Think about the Barbie analogy they use. Barbie finds her true love, the prince. He ditches his fiancée for Barbie. We celebrate it.
Right, fairy tale ending.
But what if Barbie showed up the day after the wedding? Suddenly, society says the prince can't leave his new wife for his true love, even if he doesn't love the wife.
The timing changes the rules completely.
Exactly. Society pushes true love as the reason to marry, but denies its validity if it threatens a marriage after the vows. That's the sacred cow.
Got it.
And the cynical in Cincinnati story about Celeste finding true love after divorce really hits this home. It filled a hole for her, made her life more content.
So the cow's tactic is...
It's manipulative. If you get disillusioned with your spouse, the cow whispers, true love is a fiction anyway, stick it out. If you find new love outside the marriage, the cow again says, that's not real love, it's an illusion, don't divorce. It works both angles.
And self-help books avoid love.
Often, yeah.
Oh.
Because, as the authors put it, they don't have suggestions for how to create love. It's easier to talk about communication or chores.
Right.
Consider Brenda and George. Living separate, lives under one roof. Brenda feels attraction elsewhere, wants out. George wants to save the marriage.
What are their options?
Basically 3. Try to fix the underlying issues.
Yeah.
Or George tries to convince Brenda love is a myth, stay anyway. Or they acknowledge the love is gone and decide if the marriage still has value without it. It's complex when love dies.
And then there's infidelity, such a strong taboo. The other cow.
Yeah, the other cow deals with infidelity. The book acknowledges the real pain it causes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also pushes back on the simple causation idea.
Meaning affairs don't automatically cause the divorce.
Right. Maybe the unhappy marriage leads to both the affair and the divorce. Correlation, again.
Okay.
The no way, Jose thought experiment illustrates the judgment shift. Jose meets his true love in a coffee shop. If he considers leaving his wife for this idea, maybe you sympathize.
Maybe.
But if it quickly becomes a concrete affair hotel room, sneaking around,
Yeah.
suddenly judgment hardens. The other cow wants you to label Jose a bad person for divorcing now, even if the underlying lack of love is the same.
The action changes the perception.
Definitely. And the wandering in Walla Walla anecdote is powerful. A wife whose husband had multiple affairs says she'd only stay if he still loved her. And she admits that would be for purely selfish reasons. The point, love makes the difference between staying and leaving.
Wow.
I think of Anna Karenina, a classic adulteress, but the context of her unhappy marriage makes us judge her less harshly, perhaps.
Right, context matters. Now tell me about Arnold's hypocrisy, the letters.
Yes. Arnold gives advice to 2 friends, Anne and Jeff, both of whom had affairs and want to leave their spouses. But his advice is totally different.
How so?
To Anne, the woman. He says leaving is a mistake, she's the bad guy, marriage takes hard work, uses all the cliches, grass isn't greener, the toothpaste test, finding flaws in the new partner, love is fickle. He even says second marriages are more work.
Okay, very discouraging. And to Jeff, the man.
Totally supportive. Understands his feelings, suggests his wife Anne shares the blame, validates his desire for a soulmate, offers to take his side against Anne.
Whoa, that's blatant hypocrisy.
He really is. Arnold means well, probably. But the sacred cow here isn't just that he treats friends differently, it's natural, is that he holds Anne to this much harsher, inconsistent standard, using guilt to manipulate her while basically excusing Jeff.
The insight being that society's judgment often depends on gender or who initiated the split, not the actual marital problem.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
Okay, one last common belief. Second marriages fail more often. Is that true? Does history just repeat itself?
Let's look at the data they cite from the CDC back in 2001. In the first 5 years, about 20% of first marriages end versus 23% of second marriages.
Okay, slightly higher for second marriages.
Yeah. And over 10 years, it's 33% for first marriages dissolving versus 37% for second. So again, a bit higher, but not dramatically so.
But don't people getting remarried often carry more baggage?
That's exactly the point the authors make. The second marriage team often has disadvantages. They've shown they're willing to divorce. They might bring issues like past trauma, mental health stuff, substance dependency, Plus, the stress of exes and stepkids. They call them the bad news bearers of the divorce competition.
Huh. Okay.
So despite all those extra burdens, their divorce rate is only a few percentage points higher.
Which suggests...
It suggests that actually quite a few people are happier with their second spouses. The authors challenge you, the listener, to be the umpire. Does that small statistical difference really mean second marriages are doomed, or does it just reflect life's messiness?
Food for thought.
And the devastated in Des Moines anecdote fits here. After her husband's second affair, she had this realization: if he's having affairs, that means that he's just not that into you. That epiphany freed her to leave. It wasn't just about surviving, but about personal liberation.
Right.
It all kind of circles back to that Sleepless in Seattle analogy. In the movie, society wants Annie to play it safe, Mary Walter, stable, predictable. But the movie celebrates her taking a huge risk, chasing Sam, her perceived true love, across the country. It shows a hypocrisy in how we apply these sacred cows in real life versus what we root for in stories.
Wow. This deep dive really has put so much under the microscope, things we just take for granted as true about marriage and divorce. It makes you want to question, well, pretty much everything we assume, doesn't it?
It really does. And if we connect it all back, the big picture idea seems to be that while, yes, divorce can be painful, it can impact kids, ultimately, these huge life decisions about marriage and divorce, they have to be based on the individual details of each situation, not based on some faulty notion of the law of averages.
Exactly. So we really encourage you, listening, to think about what your motivations are, what your happiness means in your unique relationships. Don't just be swayed by society's expectations or these unchallenged secret cows.
So what's the final provocative thought to leave everyone with?
Maybe it's this. We're told true love is the ideal basis for marriage, but then society often tells us that same true love is an illusion or morally wrong if it appears after the wedding bells. Perhaps questioning that contradiction, that specific sacred Kai's double standard about when love is allowed to matter, is a really powerful place to start thinking for yourself.